how do you know that there's something beyond this life? Is this life not all there is? And kind of touch on what you're going to say. Is it on Friday? I think?
Yeah. The short answer is come on Friday, because we're going to be thinking about that through all the talks of the day on Friday, I think. But how do we know there's not more? It's a kind of common assumption for many people, materialists in the West, just to say, well, this is all we've got. Although it's interesting that when you go to funerals, our materialism sometimes kind of dissipates, and we start to hope that maybe this isn't all we've got, and maybe there is something more. And actually there's a beautiful verse that was written in the first part of the Bible by a poet 3,000 years ago, and it says, God has placed eternity on our hearts. Actually, it's very difficult to comprehend and to really think this is all we've got. And there's part of us that very naturally assumes that there must be something more, which is why, as we said yesterday, there's never in any culture in the world been discovered a culture that's purely atheistic. There is this searching for something more. But how do we know? Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because the thing is, we're all alive. And we're not dead yet, and once we are dead, it's kind of hard to ask you. I like what one person said. They said, we know that there's nothing that happens after you die, because when I asked a dead person, they said, nothing. But of course, how do we know? Well, the uniqueness of the Christian claim is this, that there is one person who is uniquely qualified to speak on that. Because there is one person in history for whom the claim is made that he didn't just live and die, but also rose from the dead in a very objective, physical way, and demonstrated it in a very convincing way, such that it absolutely turned the world upside down, and we are still feeling the repercussions of that explosion 2,000 years later. In spite of the fact there is no kind of other sociological reason why that should have taken off if Jesus was just dead in a tomb somewhere in the Middle East. And so, is there life beyond death? Ultimately, to answer that question, I'd say, look at the question of Jesus' resurrection. Now, I know that for most of us, we might assume, kind of out of hand, like, there is no way I can believe that kind of stuff. Because that kind of stuff just doesn't happen. And my reason for believing in the resurrection of Jesus is not because that kind of stuff happens regularly. Like, clearly doesn't. Like, if it did, we wouldn't be talking about Jesus' resurrection. But actually because when you start to check out the evidence for it, it seems to stack up.